Dear students, welcome to our YouTube channel Vidya for Success. In this video, let us study the characteristic features of prokaryotic cell. Why we are calling the cell as a prokaryotic cell? So, cells are broadly classified into two types based on the structural differences. Some of the organisms they made out of prokaryotic cell and some they made out of eukaryotic cell. So which organisms they made out of prokaryotic cell? They are primitive organisms. And the organism with eukaryotic cell, they are little advanced compared to the prokaryotic organism. Why they are primitive? Why the organism with prokaryotic cell considered as a primitive? So that we are going to understand now. So prokaryotic cell is present in some of the organisms like bacteria, cyanobacteria, blue-green alga like cyanobacteria also called as a blue-green alga. Then it is also present in mycoplasma. So these are the few examples of organism we can give when you think about the prokaryotic cell because the organisms comes under the kingdom Monera, their body made out of prokaryotic cell. This is already we have studied in our biological classification lesson. So except the kingdom Monera, all other higher kingdoms consist of eukaryotic cell. So if you want to give the example for prokaryotic cell, you can give the example of organism belong to the kingdom Monera like bacteria or blue-green alga or mycoplasma. So like this. So these are all the organism with prokaryotic cell. So why we are considering the prokaryotic cell as a primitive type of cell? Because if you compare the structure of prokaryotic cell with the eukaryotic cell, it is a little primitive. That means there is no cell organelles and there is no nucleus and structurally the prokaryotic cell is primitive. And if you see some of the uh, activities like a cell division taking place in the prokaryotic cell, that is very rapid. That means quickly the cell division takes place in the prokaryotic cell compared to the eukaryotes. So when the cell is primitive, most of the activities taking place in that particular cell is more rapid compared to the advanced cell like eukaryotic cell. So the prokaryotic cell is smaller in size and it multiply rapidly than eukaryotic cell. So if you see the multiplication rate of multiplication, it multiply rapidly. Best example is E. coli. So E. coli is a kind of bacteria. So one E. coli require 20 minutes to form two E. coli. That means in order to multiply, the time required is very less. That means within 20 minutes, one E. coli will be successfully produces two number of daughter cells. But if we take the eukaryotic cell like human cell, so our cell requires 24 hours. That means nearly one day needed to multiply. That means in order to multiply by mitotic division, eukaryotic cell like human cell requires one day. So if you compare these two examples, the multiplication rate is very high in the prokaryotic cell. They replicate, they multiply very rapidly. Then the prokaryotic cell greatly vary in shape and size. So that means not all prokaryotic organisms are similar in their appearance. They vary greatly in size as well as shape. So best example we can take the bacteria. So in the bacteria we have four different types based on the shape and size. So some of the bacteria are named as bacillus because the shape of the bacteria here is rod shape. So rod shaped bacteria are named as bacillus and some they are circular in their shape, that means spherical shaped bacteria are also there. They are named as coccus and some bacteria are comma shaped and they are named as a vibrio and spring shaped, that means spirally coiled structure can be seen in some of the bacteria. They are named as spirillum. So if we see these four examples of bacteria, we can clearly understand shape and size of the bacteria is not same in all the species. So they greatly vary in size as well as shape. Just have a look into this diagram. So here we can see the different examples of bacteria. So the first example is coccus. That means the coccus bacteria is spherical in shape. And the second example of bacteria is bacillus rod-shaped bacteria. Then the third one is vibrio comma-shaped, and the fourth one is spirillum. So these are the four different types of bacteria. Yes, let us move to the few other characters. Then prokaryotes have a cell wall surrounding the cell membrane. So for understanding these structures, I will take the example of bacterial cell. So in the diagram you can see the innermost membrane of the bacteria is cell membrane. It is also called as plasma membrane. Then very next to the plasma membrane we have a cell wall. So there are two different membranes we can see here. The outermost membrane is called as cell wall. It is very rigid and protective in nature, and very next to the cell wall there is a cell membrane is present. So in our upcoming video, we will study detailed information regarding the cell wall and cell membrane. So now just we are understanding the overview of prokaryotic cell. That means what are the different parts are there, how actually the prokaryotic cell looks like. Only these things we are understanding now. So just you concentrate on the number of wall layers what we have in the bacterial cell. So outermost membrane here is cell wall, and very next to that we have a cell membrane. And what is there next to this cell membrane? So cell membrane actually protecting a fluid matrix region. That means the fluid filled region, inner region, is actually protected by cell membrane. So what is the name of that fluid filled matrix region? So that is named as cytoplasm. So cytoplasm is a fluid matrix region that is actually protected by cell membrane. And if we look into the cytoplasmic region, we can see highly coiled thread-like structure. So that is nothing but a genetic material. So that genetic material is not having separate membrane like what we have in the eukaryotic cell like plant cell and animal cell. So because of that, the prokaryotic cell does not consist of well-defined nucleus. So well-defined nucleus is absent in the prokaryotic cell. So instead of that, just we can see the presence of a genetic material. So the genetic material is naked. So why it is naked? It is not covered by any membrane. So because of the absence of the membrane, it is called as a naked genetic material. So this naked genetic material is DNA. Understood? So DNA is the genetic material can be seen in the prokaryotic cell like bacterial cell. Then with apart from the genomic DNA, the bacteria also consist of small circular DNA. So that small circular DNA is actually present outside the genetic material. That means it is not a part of genomic DNA. So just outside the genomic DNA, the bacteria consist of a small circular DNA that is named as plasmid. So this is very important because nowadays in most of the genetic experiments plasmids are utilizing, so that we have lots of economic importance by the plasmid, and this is playing essential role in the bacterial cell also. Then what is the function of plasmid? Why it is present? So plasmid is actually giving resistance to the bacteria against antibiotics. So all bacteria are actually sensitive to antibiotics. So antibiotics are the kinds of chemicals. So when we spray antibiotics on the surface of bacterial cell, they actually destroy. So in order to give protection to the bacteria against the antibiotic, they consist of plasmids. So the plasmids are giving resistance to the bacteria against antibiotics. Nuclear membrane and cell organelles are not present. So, nuclear membrane is the protective covering to the genetic material. So, this membrane is commonly seen in eukaryotic cell, but the nuclear membrane is not there in prokaryotic cells. So that we can see in the diagram, there is no nucleus. So, because of this, the genetic material, that is DNA, is simply suspended in the cytoplasmic region. And the one more thing you need to understand here is the absence of cell organelles. So there is no cell organelles, membrane bound cell organelles like endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, mitochondria and lysosomes. So all these membrane bound cell organelles can be seen in eukaryotic cell. But these complex cell organelles are not a part of prokaryotic cell, so that we have the difference here. That means prokaryotic cells we are calling as a primitive type of cell because there is no cell organelle, there is no nuclear membrane, and they have infoldings of cell membrane. Because of the absence of all the cell organelle, it can't perform function. So without cell organelle, it is a little bit difficult to perform some of the metabolic activity. So, in order to fulfill the functioning of cell organelles, here the organism consisting of infoldings of cell membrane. That means the cell membrane infolded in such a way to form some of the structures. So, those structures are performing multiple function in the organism. So, that structure is nothing but mesosomes. So, mesosomes are specialized differentiated form of cell membrane is the characteristics of prokaryotes. So, prokaryotes like the bacteria, they consist of infoldings of the cell membrane. So, that infolding uh, actually named as a mesosome. We can observe in the bacterial diagram here. So, the infoldings of the cell membrane, what we can see here towards the cytoplasmic region. So, those infoldings are named as mesosomes. So, it is performing many function in the bacteria. So, that we will study in our upcoming video. Clear? Yes, children, today just we concentrated on the overview of prokaryotic cell. What is there and what is not there in the prokaryotic cell. So, only those things we have understood in our today's class. Hope you all understood the today's class. Yes, thank you.